Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another installment of Entrepreneurship to the Point, a platform that equips, inspires, and informs. Today, we are unpacking the African Free Continental Trade Area or Agreement, whatever you prefer to call it. But I'm super excited as your host today, Azolam Zegandaba. I'm part of the Property Point team. For those who might not be on this webinar, we are also streaming live on YouTube, and this is actually for everyone who's on the call to be able to engage after the call and be able to look at the session. But yeah, the idea of today's session is to look at what is AFCTA, what does it mean for entrepreneurs, particularly SMMEs? We know that some of the data from the African Union suggests that up around 80% of entrepreneurs are SMMEs, and we know how this fosters also employment, and this is an issue around the continent. So we do have a variety of speakers from different regions: South Africa, Botswana, Nigeria. And we're trying to just, integrate as the AFCTA seeks to suggest. We know that it was signed in 2018, but proper implementation was just realized this year in 2021. And here at Property Point, as part of our Heritage Month, we have decided to use this platform, which informs, equips, and inspires, as a medium to engage on a Pan-African agenda. So that is why today we're talking about the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement. And we have a lovely host of speakers available. And please remember, follow us on all our platforms, social media, to the point. You can find us on YouTube, you can find us on Instagram, as well as Twitter. Today, I'm not alone. I have a co-host called Lele Balde. Lele, how are you doing today?
Hi, Azala. I'm doing really good. Thank you so much for allowing me to co-host with you. Super excited to be here with you today.
Cool, fantastic. Maybe you can take us a little bit around how we're going to be operating today, how we're going to go about engaging with the different speakers from the different countries.
Of course. So good evening or good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're tuning in from. My name is Lele Balde, and I am a global citizen originally from Senegal, and I currently live in Nigeria. I am the editor of a newspaper called the Business Day Weekender, and that is a newspaper that comes out every Saturday as part of Business Day Media. And I'm really, really excited to be here with you today. So how tonight will work essentially is that we have an array of great speakers, like Azola has mentioned, but we will give each country representative an opportunity to address us about some of the key areas of business opportunity in their various countries. As you all know, we're here to talk about the African Free Trade Agreements and how that pertains to us as individuals, as Africans, and as small business owners. And at the end of the evening, we'll also give an opportunity for two lucky people from each country represented to do an introduction, a sort of elevator pitch about their business to the entire audience. And you never know who might be listening and who might be watching. So we're really excited about the connections that will happen today. And that's a little bit about how the day will go. So back to you, Azola.
Cool, fantastic. Thank you so much, Leila, for that. And moving on to the elevator speech. The elevator speech actually comes from like an American concept where like entrepreneurs would be in high-rise building, particularly like maybe in New York, your concrete jungle for the younger people in the crowd. So you'd be high up in a high-rise building, and then you'd meet someone and need to be able to explain who you are, what you do, what your background is in less than 30 seconds. So part of this platform at Entrepreneurship to the Point is really for us to engage as entrepreneurs, as ordinary citizens, as business experts, as analysts, or whatever you do that is in line with realizing some sort of entrepreneurial fare. So we would like to use the chat platform. I can see some people, the chat is already buzzing. I'm seeing some people saying their hellos. So on the chat platform, we do have people from the Property Point Network, or Entrepreneurship to the Point Network rather, who will be responding and engaging on the chat platform. So please do tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do. In South Africa, there used to be a show called Ichiga Machiga for the South Africans. Like it used to be a dance show, and you need to tell people udumengani. So for me, this is really an opportunity for you to actually explain what your value proposition is as an individual, as an entrepreneur. And we don't know, you might be able to form meaningful relationships and meaningful partnerships within this platform. And this is why we're here. And this speaks to exactly what the conversation is about today around, really the African Free Trade Agreement. So without further ado, I will introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Benedict Zela. She is the CEO and Head of International Trade at the Johannesburg Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She joined the GCCI in 2006, looking for an expansion plan for her business. She participated in a program, Access for Women, at JCCI. Through this program and other programs at JCCI, Benedict traveled to over 20 countries in Africa and Cuba, exhibiting at Arab Health in 2016, India, and America. We are privileged to be hosting Benedict at the session and cannot really wait to hear her advice for entrepreneurs trying to grow their international footprint. Without further ado, Benedict.
Thank you, Zola. And I'd like to say a warm welcome to all participants, and also thank you to Growth Point and Property Point for this opportunity to be here today. And also, JCCI is really very honored to have Sean Tennyson from Growth Point and Property Point as our president. It's really a great honor to be working alongside Sean Tennyson. Yes, so my journey, I was in the medical industry for 30 years, and my journey started at JCCI 16 years ago when I was looking for an expansion plan. I was looking to grow my business. So I joined the program Access for Women, sponsored by the International Trade Center and the Canadian government. And within a short period of time, I was able to exhibit and travel to 20 countries in Africa, and also we secured major contracts to set up hospital turnkey projects to supply the complete product range and turnkey project to several hospitals in Africa. In 2011, my company was awarded Exporter of the Year, and I traveled to 20 countries in Africa, to India, to America, to Dubai, and to Cuba. And that really joining that program at JCCI and other programs really gave me the ability and the skills to develop my business and also to expand. And also in 2017, I was offered the position of Head of International Trade at JCCI. And then at the beginning of this year, I was promoted to CEO at JCCI. I'd just like to give a short background on the Johannesburg Chamber and the Chamber movement before I go into the benefits and what we can actually gain from the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. JCCI was established in 1890, and we're part of the International Chamber of Commerce in Paris. So we have access to about 14,000 chambers globally. The chamber movement was actually started 400 years ago in Marseille, when traders and merchants were looking at a platform where products and services could be exchanged. So it goes back to many years ago. JCCI is also part of the Association of South African Chambers, and this consists of the major chambers in South Africa, the Chamber, the Durban Chamber, the Pietermaritzburg Chamber, the Cape Town Chamber, Nelson Mandela Chamber, and the Border-Kai Chamber. At JCCI, our main focus is to provide our members and our SMEs with a platform where they can engage globally and form partnerships or joint ventures. So we host 2 to 3 international events a month where the High Commissioner or the Ambassador will give an overview of the bilateral trade opportunities, and we will also invite a logistics company, a financial institution to speak through the trading cycle, and we'll also invite 1 or 2 companies that has been successful in that country, giving their insight and also giving their brief on what are the opportunities and what are the challenges. And also part of my profile at JCCI, we also run a global export accelerator where we train Black-owned SMEs in every aspect of exporting. We implemented this project in 2015, and on the success of this project, we identified that the next phase in our project is where we will provide specialized services. We will invite an expert in that industry to give hands-on practical training to the SMEs. So from there, we embarked on phase 2 in partnership with the German government, GIZ. We embarked on agri-processing and then creative industries. We launched the Women in Business Desk last year, and within the next 3 to 4 weeks, we will be launching a global export accelerator where our model will be taken to all the major chambers in South Africa. So we're very, very excited about the next phase in our program as well. And going on there, I would just like to cover the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. This is going to give small businesses, medium-sized businesses, great trade opportunities. I'd just like to cover briefly just outlay it and then just give some of the brief of opportunities as well. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement will cover a market of 1.2 billion people and a gross domestic product, GDP, of $2.5 million across all 55 states of the African Union. In terms of numbers of participating countries, ACFA will be the world's largest free trade area since the formation of the World Trade Organization. Sorry, that figure was the gross domestic product is $2.5 trillion, sorry. It is also a highly dynamic market. The population of Africa is projected to reach 2 billion by 2015, at which point it will comprise 25% of what is projected to be the world's working age population, with an economy that is estimated to grow twice as rapidly as that of the developed world. With average tariffs of 6.1%, business currently face higher tariffs when they export within Africa than when they export outside it. ACFA will progressively eliminate tariffs on intra-African trade, making it easier for African businesses to trade within the continent and to cater to and benefit from the growing African market. Consolidating this continent into one trade area provides great opportunities for trading enterprises, businesses, and consumers across Africa, and the chance to support sustainable development in the world's least developed region. ACFA will also produce more jobs for Africa's bulging youth population. This is because extractive exports on which Africa's trade is currently based are less labor intensive than the manufacturers and agricultural goods that will benefit most from ACFA by promoting more labor intensive trade. ACFA creates more employment. Small and medium-sized enterprises are key to growth in Africa. They account for around 80% of the regional businesses. These businesses usually struggle to penetrate more advanced overseas markets, but are well positioned to tap into regional export destinations and can use regional markets as stepping stones for expanding into overseas markets at a later point. Another way in which small and medium-sized enterprises can benefit by ACFA, making it easy to supply inputs to larger regional companies who then export. While African countries that are relatively more industrialized are well placed to take advantage of the opportunities for manufactured goods, less industrialized countries can benefit from linking into regional value chains. Regional value chains involve larger industries sourcing their supplies from smaller industries across borders. ACFA makes the formation of regional value chains easier by reducing trade costs and facilitating investment. Agricultural countries can gain from satisfying Africa's growing food security requirements. The perishable nature of many agricultural food products means that they are particularly responsive to improvements in customs clearance times and logistics that are expected of ACFA. The majority of African countries are classified as resource rich. Tariffs on raw materials are already low, and so ACFA can do little to further promote these exports. However, by lowering these African tariffs on intermediaries and final goods, ACFA will create additional opportunities for adding value to natural resources and for diversifying into new business areas. I'd just like to cover some of the areas as well that ACFA will present opportunities. South African companies will benefit from reduced or duty-free access into key markets in East and West Africa that we currently have no preferential access into. These include many of the East African Community countries and ECOWAS markets as well. The growing mining and oil and gas industries in many of these countries provide excellent opportunities for South African-based suppliers to tap into the expertise available in South Africa in these sectors. Other sectors of good opportunity include food and beverages, renewable energy, where South Africa is developing good capacity as a supplier of goods and services, automotive, steel and other construction materials and products. In fact, most of our manufactured goods. In fact, there's a great drive to boost and revive the manufacturing industry, because that's really where the trade cycle begins. So we're really looking at different incentives and what different benefits can be given to manufacturers to manufacture their products, and from there it can be exported into the ACFA region and also abroad as well. It also should be looked at more holistically rather than simply as a tariff mechanism. In conjunction with ACFA, you have a growing local component requirements in many countries for major products, and you have COVID-related concerns over lead times and supply chains from Asia and Europe being disrupted, causing increased prices and delays in project deliveries. I know when I had my own business, there were often times when the hospitals requested some, I remember the catheters, specialized catheters, that if they had to import it from Europe or Asia, the lead time would be about a week to 10 days, and we were able to supply it within one day to 1.5 days. We would pre-clear it, so the lead time was much more favorable, supplying it, from South Africa into the ACFA countries as well. Also, we should be...
Benedict, can I just jump in over there? You just spoke a little bit around manufacturing. And I know, because you're talking about the South African context, and if we're looking at the South African context, do you think it is necessary for in-country legislation to be in alignment with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement? Because I look at South Africa, there's the National Development Plan, which is primarily looking at manufacturing as one of our growth industries. And for us, we're in the property and related spaces. And how can small businesses, align themselves to such legislations, if maybe you have some thoughts around that you may be able to share with us?
Yes, Zola, there, all the authorities there, I think that will be the great benefit for all the participants, all the participating countries, because the authorities will all provide a framework which will be favorable, so it would reduce all the challenges. Everybody will look what will be beneficial for all countries, and also look at the challenges and provide a framework that will be favorable and would actually really make trading services and products on the African continent favorable.
Yes, no,
and
definitely.
That will really promote intra-Africa trade, as I say, services and products as well.
Yeah, no, true. I know you're so busy with your presentation, but like one other question, maybe let's, because we're looking in Southern Africa at the moment, maybe if we look at West Africa, there's long established relationships between like maybe your Ghana and Nigeria, Southern Africa, maybe South Africa and Zimbabwe. And quite recently, the African Free Continental Trade Agreement speaks to free movement of goods and free movement of people. But given the market shock or the externality of COVID, we have seen at the border of South Africa and Zimbabwe quite a lot of difficulties in already well-established relationships. Do you think some of these well-established relationships lack the necessary, frameworks and just coming together to be able to really realize some of the objectives of the African free trade area, and how would we be able to, make trading easier? Because with COVID, goods weren't able to go across South Africa to Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe to South Africa, as well as people. So, and this is a long established relationship between these two countries. So does this mean that we have the African Free Trade Area Agreement, however, we might not have the necessary inputs in place to make it a success? I don't know what your thoughts are around that.
I think there, we would also be looking at, because even at the moment, we will take the existing trade agreements like the SADC, the ECOWAS, and how that can be built and, almost built to be, to make, give benefit to all countries participating. And so I think that is one of the benefits. And then also customs, I know at the office, we meet with customs SARS on a weekly basis, because they've really escalated. They really want to address the challenges and the problems being faced by traders, exporters, importers. They really doing, everything that they're able to address these problems and challenges and provide a framework where it will just ease and facilitate the trade, So SARS has escalated this whole process. I can actually see that by the number of meetings and the discussions, and also the different stakeholders that's also participating in all these meetings. So they're receiving input from every different angle, on how to make trade, to how to ease trade, and to really reduce the challenges, and to make trade on the continent, intra-Africa trade, as favorable and as easy as possible.
Yes, no, thank you for that, Benedict. I think you've summed it up quite nicely. As you were. Sorry for that interruption, but I just had to put it in there because you had mentioned it, and I thought it would be really great to get some of your thoughts around those issues.
Yes, and then also we should be looking to see where we can source goods, inputs, or finished articles from the region at competitive prices. So this will really encourage the intra-Africa trade. So one region, one country will provide the raw materials, the next country will provide the packaging. So this would encourage the intra-Africa trade, and we could provide the finished product, because at the moment we are supplying in Africa, we're supplying the raw materials, and we importing the finished products. So with this Continental Free Trade Agreement, we will encourage that intra-Africa trade. So within the continent, we provide the raw materials, the packaging, the finished product, and we can then export the finished product. And this will also offset the trade imbalances and lower the cost of intra-regional trade that currently exists, because so many countries and trucks return to South Africa empty, thus costing exporters more. There should be a real effort made to do this, as ultimately everyone benefits. South African exporters are partners in the rest of Africa, and South African importers of inputs into their manufacturing or sales. So as I mentioned, this is one of the goals of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, that we really encourage intra-Africa trade of products and services where we can then export the finished product. And that's just a brief presentation on the benefits that we see from the Continental Free Trade Agreement. And I'd like to host any questions, or maybe we can discuss any other opportunities as well.
Cool. Thank you so much, Benedict, for that. I'll hand over to Lele to facilitate the questions and to handle that session. Lele? Okay, I think Lele might have like some technical issues on her side. So from my side, I'm just going to look at a little bit on the chat. So one of the questions, and it speaks to some of the questions, like one of the first questions I had, because like, as I said earlier on, and I think you mentioned as well in your presentation, when we're looking at the African Union data, 80% of businesses in Africa are SMMEs, and how does the African Free Trade Area benefit SMMEs? So I think a lot of the callers online are small, medium enterprises and would benefit quite richly from that question. I see it's one of the questions on the chat from Karine.
I'd also like to emphasize the importance of, before you embarking on going into new market, accessing new markets, always do a market research. Now, there are different tools available. We can make that available. We can provide you with that information. But when you're doing your market research, it would ask you a description of your product, your tariff code, and also where you're looking to export your products. And from there, you will see which countries, because it's important that you do the market research, because you don't want to go into a new country if maybe your product's restricted there, or your products is inundated, there's an oversupply of your product there. So it's important, I would emphasize the market research. I know when I was in the medical industry, that was one of the first points that I would do, is before going into new market, I would do a market research, and then I would also go through the different chambers or the foreign economic reps as well. And they will give you a list of potential partners for your product. So as I say, it's very important, the market research. And then once you've identified the suitable markets, the chambers of commerce and the foreign economic reps will assist you to connect you with suitable partners for your products as well. And then also, when you're going into a new market, there are different when you do your market research, you can establish whether you want to appoint a distributor or an agent, or if maybe it might be necessary for you to set up an operation in the foreign country, because in some of these countries, they offer different incentives and investments incentives. So to look at that as well. So for I think each product, each business, that would be completely different depending on your product. So it's important to identify, whether you get appoint an agent or distributor, and then also when you go into a new market, it's very important to create a brand awareness of your brand, that people, because I know also traveling, extensively into Africa within the medical, like the Johnson & Johnson products, or there was certain, or Draeger, these are products that's well known. So you have to come up with a very good quality product, and then also create a brand awareness. You could say it's locally manufactured in South Africa, or it's manufactured, as part of the ACFA trade agreement, or part of ACFA. So that could be one of the selling points as well. And then again, price. And then also the other thing is delivery. You could deliver it in a much shorter period of time, and quality is of utmost importance as well.
All right, thank you so much, Benedict, for such a comprehensive, answer towards entering particularly new markets. And I totally agree with you, the importance of doing your due diligence when you are expanding and entering into new markets. We do have another question from Tobo Katolo. However, this is a question in which I think I might have answered a little bit around the South Africa and Zimbabwe. So he's talking about, for the countries that have ratified, is the agreement in full swing? Is there free movement of goods and labor? So as I had said, from myself being here in South Africa, we've seen with regards to having COVID, which is obviously a market externality, which was not expected, there has been limited movement of goods and labor in particular as a result of the in-country national health departments and their regulations thereof. So I don't know if you can quickly maybe just be able to answer that, and that will be the only other question we'll take for this for Benedict.
Hi, Azala. So we should take these questions in the chat. And I don't know if that's okay with you.
That's perfect.
All right, Azala, I hope that's fine with you. I just got a message asking that we take these messages in the chat. But yes. Benedict, thank you so very much for that very interesting presentation. I love the fact that you started out with, the facts: 1.2 million people, $2.5 trillion. And this has the opportunity to be the largest free trade area in the entire world. 25% of the world working age population will grow twice as rapidly as it's currently growing. And essentially, we all know that, as you've mentioned, and you and Azola have been having conversations, tariffs within Africa are extremely high cost. And we look forward to seeing that go down. And I also, what I noted from your presentation was the power of partnerships, and that the fact that there's so many stakeholders that are necessary to make this a successful free trade agreement. So Benedict, thank you so very much for that very insightful conversation. So I'd like to move on to our next guest. So our guest from Botswana, Katlego Moketi. Please kindly turn on your video. She's the founder and executive director of Market Players. Market Players Botswana is an entrepreneurship development program committed to reducing the failure rates of citizen-owned businesses in Botswana. Katlego is passionate about the prosperity of Botswana, entrepreneurs, and has an in-depth understanding of how business is done in her country. We look forward to engaging her on what symbiotic opportunities there are for African entrepreneurs in Botswana. So Katlego, are you there with us?
I'm here, Lele. Thank you so much for having me. I can't switch on my video on my end. Brad, can you help me with that?
I'm sure Brad will be able to help you with that.
Thank you.
So if the backend could help Katlego turn on her video, that would be great.
Katlego, you can go ahead and start.
Okay.
So please just start your presentation, and they'll go ahead and turn that on you when they can.
All right. To see the people as I speak, though. So, all right, it's okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Are we good to go?
Yes, we can see you clearly and looking forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Lele and Zola, and thank you so much for a very engaging and interesting session. My name is Katlego. To everyone else who's on the call, I'm a girl from Botswana, and I love my country so much that we are constantly, through our nonprofit organization, trying to figure out tangible solutions to solving our problems. So what inspired market players is really having looked at the macroeconomic factors in Botswana. So I'll just give you a bit of a background in Botswana on the key economic indicators of Botswana. You know, our country is renowned to be one of the most stable economies in Africa, the jewel of Africa, really, and it's because of that. We are the jewel of Africa really because for a long time our government has employed an expansionary fiscal policy, which means that government would sort of go out of its way to bring a bit of activity in the economy. However, this approach, we've seen it breeding some sort of over-reliance on government in terms of solving economic problems. So if you look at Botswana, we have good governance, we have low inflation rate, low interest rates, we have subsidies, tax rebates, the whole 9 yards, you know. And when you look at those sort of textbook key economic indicators, you would expect Botswana to be like your UAE by now, you know, but unfortunately, the reality on the ground is we still have inequitable wealth distribution. Our unemployment rate is at almost 20%, just about 18% there. We still have low income levels where you see the average income is just under 10,000 pula. 10,000 pula would be about 13,000 rand. And we still have an underdiversified economy and a bit of slow growth. You know, in our glory days, we had economic growth of up to 9%. However, we've seen it sort of plummet, and we are now at an average of 3 to 4%, which is a concern because it says there's something fundamentally wrong. If on paper we've got low inflation rate, good interest rates, subsidies, rebates, you know, development finance, you know, the government of Botswana, on average, I'll give an example, we've got a development finance institution that spends an average of 400 to 600 million on funding businesses. This is called the Citizen Entrepreneurial Development Agency. So you see a lot of effort come from government, but you don't see it translate on the ground. So we sort of zoomed into the business sector to say what exactly is the problem. If there's government, there's funding coming from government and all these rebates, subsidies, and all this ideally palatable environment, why is the failure rate of businesses up to 70 to 80%? So we had to sort of say, let's address this issue. So that's how market players was born, to say, how do we converge the efforts between the government and the business sector and the consumers to ensure that there's that convergence and we can start to see such efforts come together and translate onto the ground where we see distribution of wealth improving, we see unemployment rate lowering and all of that. So that's where market players come in really to say, okay, let's address the real issues that affect entrepreneurs. And when we looked at the ground, we saw that these were accumulated. There were issues of access to market, there were issues of access to funding. However, what has been our approach is to say, let's lessen our dependence on government, to say, let's create a new sort of entrepreneur with a new line of thinking of saying, how do I do business without relying on government to be the biggest buyer, to be the one really starting my business solely to tender. If I want funding, I'm looking at government. So to say, let's create a business sector that is more vibrant, has more diversity, more and that's pretty much how we came about to coming up with market pillars as a solution, because we believe that entrepreneurship is a tangible solution to solving our economic problems as a country, and also to reducing our unemployment rate. So this brings us now to export markets as a way to expand our market. So in Botswana, we've got quite a small population, which really affects our ability to do business at the level that we want to. So these are some of the things that sort of become a bottleneck for our entrepreneurs. So when it comes to export markets, we started to look at them as to say, how do we use the export markets to expand our market pool, to say, instead of focusing on the 2 million people in Botswana, we now look at the 1.3 billion in the world, and then in Africa, and then leverage the AfCFTA, and also to improve competitiveness by leveraging economies of scale and diversifying our GDP earners. So this brings us to the AfCFTA, which we are excited about. It presents a lot of opportunity for us, some of the areas that we're looking into, and implore our entrepreneurs in Botswana to start preparing themselves to leverage and capitalize in this sector, and transport and logistics. Botswana is linked, which gives it an advantage in that we are able to sort of move goods easily across many states, because we're one of the 15 countries that have signed the AfCFTA that are land linked. So this actually puts us at an advantage, because it means even if products are being manufactured in South Africa or in Zimbabwe or in Namibia, we can actually start moving them through our land resource. So we want to see our entrepreneurs start to tap into transport and logistics industry, to say, be the one moving goods between Cape and Cairo, and this is a sector that we believe is still a bit untapped. We also are looking at the manufacturing industry. Botswana mostly import a lot of goods. If you look at our biggest imports are food, beverage, and tobacco. On average, we import 7,900 million pula worth of food, beverage, and tobacco. Beverage and tobacco, and then fuel goes well over 8,500 million in imports. So these are some of the areas where we are looking into say, okay, how can we start producing for ourselves to meet local demand, but also be able to export those goods, as well as, of course, the meat sector. We actually have an advantage in meat and meat products because we've got an abundance of cattle and the best beef in the world, really. We also have got salt pans that also give us an advantage in the salt industry. So we want to see our entrepreneurs start to play in the salt industry, start to manufacture and process and package salt, because we've got the makali pans and the soya pans that have an abundance of salt in Botswana. We are also looking in the financial services, particularly non-banking, where like insurance, and micro lending. That's an area that we begin to start playing into, and we would like to see Botswana start to export more of that. One of the companies that I can think of that are originally from Botswana is Lipiro, that actually does micro lending. These are some of the areas that we are looking to play into and expand into Africa through the AfCFTA. And of course, natural products. We've got an abundance of Murula, we've got abundance of Moana. Moana is Baobab, Mongwala, we've got Aloe, we've got all these natural products, Devil's Claw, which we call Senapatile, that we want to see all the manufacturers that are playing in those sectors start to export those products through the AfCFTA. So we're quite excited. Of course, we are not lagging behind on the tech. We are seeing a lot of young people come play into that sector, and we want to see, alongside the financial services that I'm talking about, attach the tech aspect of it so that we're able to export our fintech expertise and our talent in that area. So we are excited about the AfCFTA. However, we're not over excited because we are aware that there's a lot that needs to be done to get the trade agreement to actually work for us. So Botswana, currently we have not ratified. We've signed the agreement, but not yet ratified. And really, we are expecting that the AfCFTA will really start to pay off probably in an average of 15 years. And I want to be honest with you, entrepreneurs, to say, this is the time for you to prepare yourself and start scaling gradually. Yes, there's a market of 1.3 billion. Yes, our collective GDP is about 3.4 trillion. There's all of that. But in terms of harmonizing the policies and actually harmonizing the tariffs and the rules of origin, it's going to take a bit of time. So this is the time for you as an SME to figure out which area do I want to play in? How do I start to scale myself up so that when really we start to see more movement, you are ready to be like a front runner. So it's estimated that the tariffs will be phased down. I think the shortest period that I saw on the phase down period was about 5 years in terms of starting to drop the tariffs. But if you look at the initial offerings from the other countries that have actually submitted the instruments of ratification, you've still got 5% tariffs there and up to 30% on some of the tariff lines. So I just want you guys to be aware that it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be an easy, yes, we've got 1.3 billion people that I can immediately start moving into, which is why we would really like to encourage African entrepreneurs to inform themselves and to begin to do those market researches like Benedict says, and of course, market your products ahead, because what you don't, it's one thing to start when the agreement is running at full throttle. It's one thing to get access for your product, maybe it's now on the shelf in Ghana or in South Africa, but who is going to pick it from the shelf? That's another thing. So this is the time for you to do your research, to start branding yourself ahead, to start doing those activations so that those markets start to know you exist. An easy example would be if you are marketing on Facebook. If you've been clicking Botswana as the only area that you are targeting your digital ads on, stop that. Start to click Africa, start to click the world, so that people start to see your brand, start to know you exist, start to look into what exactly you are offering, so that as you start to gradually move into the market, they actually know this product, they've heard of it, they know the benefits and what have you. So I think this is an exciting opportunity for entrepreneurs, but I do want us to take time to inform ourselves and begin to understand. And one of the ways that we thought, because those phase down periods that we're looking at of an average of 5 to 15 years, is to say, what do we not do in the meantime? As Botswana, we've got a market of 2 million, and we need a bigger market pool. South Africa has a population of, I think, about 56 million. Our market is equivalent to the population of Soweto alone. So it's for us now to start saying, how do I get my markets into markets that will be low-hanging fruits? Get into South Africa, get into the townships. If you can't get into a Checkers or a Clicks or a Pick and Pay, get into the townships, get into the spaza shops, get your products to be seen and to be known, because those are areas that you can start playing in, and are not so stringent to enter those markets. And if you look at the 2018-2019 statistics for travel in Botswana, of the 2.3 million travelers that came to Botswana, 30% of them were coming from South Africa. So that shows you a bit of an idea of informal cross-border trade that happens. Just that for going on the Fontaine border, an average of 25 to 30,000 people move in and out per month. So it's potential there. I believe that Botswana and South Africa, we need to start looking as SMEs to say, how do we work together and pair to work together in this sector? So I already spoke about transport and logistics. I've sat down with people that are already distributing from South Africa, and one of their concerns was the truck goes and it comes back empty. And I'm like, the truck shouldn't come back empty, because we need goods to come back to South Africa. How do we figure out how to do those linkages to avoid unnecessary costs? That comes with strategic partnership, that comes with business pairing. When we're talking about the manufacturing industry, there's so much potential in Botswana. We've got special economic zones that have been specially gazetted, so that once you operate your business there, you've got benefits like your tax benefits and what have you, to say, let's start manufacturing in Botswana, let's start assembling in Botswana. But we can't just do that alone. We need entrepreneurs from South Africa, from the rest of Africa, to work together, because one of the key things that we're trying to do is attract foreign direct investment. However, we need that to not come in the form of state to state. What we've been seeing is, even if an investor comes, the investor never really pairs or work directly with entrepreneurs in Botswana. That's an area that we think we can tap into to say, there's an entrepreneur in Botswana, they've got an advantage that they've got access to that, for example, special economic zone, those citizen economic empowerment benefits and what have you, to say, let's pair, work together, invest in Botswana, invest in South Africa, avoid the unnecessary costs that we end up doing because we're sort of operating in silos and doing a duplication of efforts where you find a truck leaves Botswana, comes to South Africa, goes back empty, truck leaves South Africa, goes, this doesn't make sense. This is why we wanted to do something like this actually in partnership with entrepreneurship to the point and property point to say, let's pull together our entrepreneurs so that while we're still in the process of ratifying and harmonizing all these tariffs and all this rules of origin, which might take a bit of time, we can still start trading now. We can still start forming those populations now. So my advice to you as the entrepreneurs is start going to trade shows. There's an intra-Africa trade fair that's coming in Durban. Go to Durban. I know we don't have money lying around. I know all about that. But scrape up your sense, go to this trade fairs, showcase your goods, meet buyers, so that by the time you hear that now those duties are now in effect, those duty-free, all those customs exercises that have been done are now in full effect. You start moving your products there because you've already established partners, you've already established networks. This is very critical. So I really would love to see SMEs and informal sectors, because right now, a lot of the trade that actually happens between our countries is between ICBTs, which are informal cross-border traders. These are informal businesses that don't necessarily have export and import license. To say, how do you start preparing yourself now to be the first to actually grab the low-hanging fruits? As an SME, start preparing yourself right now, start researching, start trying to find out how best to leverage all of that, because for now,
yes, can I just jump in over there? Like, sorry to interrupt your flow, and I love what you're saying, and I absolutely love the point where you started bringing it closer to the SMMEs, because that is where the spirit of the conversation really is. And you spoke about SEZs, and here in South Africa as well, we have industrial development zones and special economic zones. And I'd just like to find out, like, if I'm a South African SMME and I'm partnering with a Botswana entity or an SMME, does the tax benefit only lie for the Botswana SMME, or would the South African be able to claim some sort of tax benefits over and above the reduction of the tariffs, of course, when it's a cross-border trade?
Yes, you would be. By virtue of you having qualified to operate in the special economic zone, you would be able to benefit from those incentives. But it's particularly important for you to work with a citizen, because there's also going to be benefits of citizen economic empowerment. We've got that policy in place. And this is really the sort of partnerships that we want to see. What we are currently seeing is, yes, you get an investor, but the investor wouldn't necessarily be paired with someone in Botswana. So they come, they set up their business, and the only benefit that you really get is maybe sort of small supplies, and we don't want that. We want Botswana to be equity partners, we want them to be active, we want them to really benefit from this sort of partnerships where they're not just be like the cleaning services, more supplies. We want that.
All right, no, thank you for that, Katlego. On the line, just look at your screens. We do have a poll that is going, which is asking some multiple choice questions, like where you're from. I've seen on the chat there's a lot of love from Botswana. There's a place where I worked in Botswana. I was doing like some healthcare delivery there, Molopele. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but if my memory serves me right, that's the place. We also have Nigeria, South Africa, and any other country. And yeah, Katlego, like I know you were still continuing with the conversation. Yeah.
Okay. No, I just wanted to say that because right now we're still in the process of harmonizing. Yes, it is, most countries have signed. Yes, some have submitted the instruments of ratification, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done by the heads of state. There's still a lot of negotiations that needs to be taken up, because what we are really getting in terms of the tariff offers, it's really initial offers. I know the East African community has submitted that. I think COMESA and I think Malawi is one of the countries that has submitted. Those are still up for negotiation, and the heads of state are still looking at that to see whether or not this would work out. And as I'm saying, really, some of these tariffs, maybe it would take us a bit of time for us to start seeing, because we're targeting over 90% of them to be lifted, but it will take up to that 15-year period. So as an SME, really, you don't want to wait 15 years for you to start trading with Africa and benefiting from the duty free. So start identify the tariff lines that have already affected those duty-free product lines and all of it. It really comes with you informing yourself, because it's a lot of product lines, so it's very difficult for you to say line by line, post is that, beef is that, and whatever. It's up to you really to read through it, keep yourself informed, find out who has submitted, what have they submitted, and what have you. But in the meantime, prepare yourself, start penetrating other markets and see what low-hanging fruits you can grab.
Wonderful, Katlego. Thank you so very much for that. I think every African country needs ambassadors like you, people who are passionate about their countries, passionate about businesses in the country, and who also know about investment opportunities in their country. So thank you for speaking with so much passion, and also shedding light on the different types of investment opportunities, and also the gaps that are currently present in Botswana. We definitely all need ambassadors like you in our African continent. So thank you so very much for sharing so passionately and for sharing your expertise with us. So thank you so much,
Lily.
You're most welcome. So last but not least, Gemina, Harry, if you could please turn on your video and your audio. So Gemina is joining us with 8 years of experience in the supply chain management experience, which encompasses strategic sourcing, negotiation, commercial contract implementation, as well as negotiation. She is also conversant in EPCC, project procurement, supply chain innovation, and process optimization, as well as supplier management. She is passionate about the supply chain management processes and the role that the SCM plays in client satisfaction while improving operational efficiency, which is essential to generating top-line revenue. So Gemina Harry, thank you so very much for joining us. We know that you have an interesting and insightful talk or presentation around supply chain on the African continent and how the African Free Trade Continental Agreement ties that all in. So Gemina, are you there with us?
Hi, Lily, I'm here.
Okay,
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So over to you.
Okay, great. No, thank you so much, Lily, for the introduction. It's really a great privilege to be speaking to all the experts in the audience today. Thanks to the Entrepreneurship to the Point team for inviting me and putting this very empowering platform. And to my fellow panelists, it's been a very interesting session with different perspectives. I'll start off with a speech or with a quote. One of my favorite quotes, it goes that anticipation is the ultimate advantage. It's by Tony Robbins. I'm sure most of you might know him. And I came across this quote recently, and I think it embodies some of the key elements of business and life in general. As entrepreneurs, you go into the numerous studies and you find that most of the companies that have been able to maintain sustainability in their field are those who have been very good at adapting to changes and being able to determine when the changes are coming and capitalize on those changes in order to sustain market dominance. So this rule also applies to supply chain. And just as Lele mentioned, I'll be talking majorly in the areas of supply chain, but majorly touching on two aspects. The first one being the role of your supply chain strategy in building a sustainable brand and business, and the implication of the African Free Trade Continental Agreement on your supply chain strategy. The second part I'll be talking through would be other complementary aspects or other complementary agreements that we as SMEs, as entrepreneurs, should advocate for within our societies, that will enable the effective implementation of the AFCFTA. Now going off into the aspect related to supply chain strategy, sustainable business, and the implication of the free trade agreement on that, I will start off by just recapitulating some of the key points that have already been touched on from the different speakers. And it boils down to the fact that the goal of every business, whether large or small scale, is to provide quality products and services to the customer while maintaining profitability. So whether it's a decision on what transport solution you select, or a decision regarding how much inventory or how much stock you're going to carry, your company's supply chain strategy is determining the ultimate performance of your business and contributing to influencing your customer perceptions of your brand. Therefore, it is very important to understand, firstly, how are these decisions you're taking in terms of supply chain impacting your business? And you need to actually become deliberate about addressing the weak points in your supply chain strategy. Now, the AFCFTA brings with it some tariff liberalization schemes on 90% of initially tariff commodities. In addition, there are added benefits from the removal of non-tariff barriers, such as unfavorable customs procedures and long processing times. It will ultimately reduce the trade costs associated with NTBs, which are the non-tariff barriers, because it creates a common set of rules for participating countries in areas such as competition, technical trade, technical barriers to trade, and sanitary standards. So this implies, access to new markets, which has been extensively discussed by Benedict and my other panelists, and it will enable the ease of intra-regional movement of goods and services. Now, what does that mean from a supply chain perspective? So regardless of the implementation strategies at the country level, and I'll talk a bit more about this, businesses in Africa, whether small or large scale, need to view this, the potential of the growth opportunities offered by the African Free Trade Continental Agreement as a prompt to rethink supply chain strategies and operations. Therefore, building greater flexibility into your investment and transition plans. So I'm going to suggest to you 6 key areas of your supply chain strategy, which you can begin to think about and focus on, especially given the new provisions of the Continental Trade Agreement. The first area we'll talk about would be on rethinking your geographical footprint. And this is quite applicable even to the SMEs, right? Because today, in terms of where you position your logistics, where you position your production could be from producing clothes to any other form of small scale goods that you're making. Even value-added services could be considered as production. So packaging, pre-packaging, or labeling, these are all value-added services, and they could be considered a form of production. I think small scale businesses need to start to think, how can I reposition my production activities based on the scope and the timing of investment? This could be an area of competitive advantage by exploring where are the countries within the African Free Trade Agreement framework that I could leverage lower production costs. Companies can also achieve economies of scale by just by situating correctly your production process. If it's in a busy distribution route, you can leverage economy of scale by achieving cheaper logistics costs from higher distribution networks. Also, leveraging digital innovations footprint will not necessarily translate to brick offices. So when we talk about footprint, in most of the time we think of it as brick offices, as I need to be physically present there, but we have digital innovations which we can leverage on to ensure that we are able to connect with sources from other locations and exploit those opportunities through the digital innovations. The second point I will talk about is regarding the procurement approach. So redefining and rethinking your procurement approach. SMEs particularly, they need to assess the local supply bases, whether it's within your country or within the African network. They need to be able to identify where are the good sources to supply or to buy raw materials at competitive costs. In addition to this, I think it's very essential that SMEs begin to build a strong understanding on using some of these AFC, FTA operational instruments, especially the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, the PAPSS. The PAPSS is actually a centralized payment and settlement infrastructure that will facilitate the intra-African trade. So once you're able to locate the source of the raw materials at a competitive cost, the instruments like the PAPPS will ensure that you're able to pay your suppliers without losing too much gains in terms of the foreign exchanges. Now, going into my third point, which is on the stocking policies. So this will be particularly important for businesses who are interested in exporting local products to new markets. You will need to review your stocking policies and adjust your tactics to ensure your business continuity and maintain service levels in both local and new markets. In the short to mid-term, you will need to assess how much stock, and you call them the buffer stocks. How much buffer stocks do I need to have in place if I'm looking at not just servicing local demand, but also servicing demand from outside the shores of my country? You need to understand in terms of the stocking practices, the stocking policies, because this will enable you have more flexibility to respond to changing demands within your network and outside of the outside of your country's shores. The fourth point I go into is on outsourcing. Now, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement brings so many opportunities for outsourcing of non-core businesses. If you're into a specific area of business and, for example, logistics is not your key area of business, you can outsource your logistics to knowledgeable third-party logistics companies that are knowledgeable about the intra-regional routes, have the right intra-regional transport solutions, and could offer you cheaper logistics costs because they have an aggregation of products from different sources and different country locations. The fifth point I go into is regarding the market strategies, and I believe that was being discussed at the earlier session. I think it's very important as well that businesses not only maintain awareness in the changing market trends in their local markets, but also in the new African markets. You need to be able to effectively predict and manage the changes in demand, because this invariably impacts your stock volumes at the end of the day. The last but not the least point, and maybe one of the most important points that we have, and one of the reasons we're here today, is on the building of capacities. The changes implied by the AFCFTA will require businesses to build new capabilities to underpin more responsive supply chain business performance. These will include tools, utilization capacities, and a good place to start will be to try to start to learn about the operational instruments of the AFCFTA, like the PAPs and the non-trade barrier tools. There are quite a few of them that have been developed, instrumental tools that have been developed. And it's important to start building knowledge, building capabilities around how these tools can benefit your business, how they can be utilized, how they can be used to facilitate your supply chain activities. It's important also to gain knowledge on the rules of the intra-regional trade framework, such as the applicable customs procedures, packaging guidelines under the AFCTA, and even the Incoterms, like for small-scale businesses that are not very familiar with international trade. This is bringing now closer the world to you, closer the African markets to you. It's important that you begin to build that knowledge, build the capabilities on some of the intra-regional trading customs framework, trading frameworks and guidelines like the Incoterms that would invariably help you mitigate against bottlenecks during the export process. So I will now jump into my second point, which is talking now about what are those other complementary actions or complementary agreements that we must advocate as entrepreneurs in our various communities and in our various societies to enable a more effective implementation of the AFCTA at the national level. So I start off by emphasizing the need for SMEs and civil societies to advocate within their countries for the development of the national implementation strategy. Now, this is important because the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement was negotiated at the continental level. However, much of its implementation and gains will be at the country level. Hence, the agreement needs to be translated and contextualized to domestic realities. Some of the stipulations of the agreement may work better for one country than it would for the next country. So I think it's quite important that at the national level, each country is already putting together some effort to develop a country-specific national supply chain or national implementation strategy, sorry. So state parties will need to take deliberate actions to make the AfCFTA work and create the necessary enabling environment. Now, a few countries have already taken cognizance of this point, and I think they're working quite actively on developing national implementation strategy. Just to name a few, you have Togo, who have actually working on their strategy. They're getting quite a lot of heavy support from the UN. They've even gone as far as already training, SMEs market on utilization of some of these AfCFTA instruments. You have Cote d'Ivoire, Zambia, Guinea. Quite a few of the countries are taking cognizance of the relevance of having a national implementation strategy, and they're making very good strides in terms of achieving that. However, this is unfortunately not the case for all African countries. So it's an area definitely for focus and more advocation. So going hand in hand with this, having a national implementation strategy, because it's one thing to have a national implementation strategy, another thing to actually make available the relevant resources to ensure that those implementation strategy is actually deployed. So going hand in hand with this action is the institutionalization, right, and the relevant cross-sectoral governance mechanisms. You most likely require some effort from not just the public sector, but also the private sector to ensure that these actionable steps as stipulated in national strategy are realized. Now, secondly, I will talk a bit more into the WTO's Trade Facilitation Agreement, which was entered into force in the month of February of 2017. And was ratified by 44 African countries. Now, out of the 44 African countries, only 18 countries have achieved over 50% of the implementation. The remaining 26 members are yet to reach this level, while about 12 members stand below 20%. Now, why is the TFA important? It's important because it provides a framework to guide the improvement in the trade facilitation that could ensure the stronger mechanisms for the implementing of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Now, trade facilitation is important, particularly to small businesses, because it helps the small businesses participate in trade. It helps the small businesses address unnecessary costs related to trade procedures, and it's essential for firms in order to help firms capitalize on the new market openings. And it's especially relevant, right, for SMEs, for which the cost of trading can be disproportionately high. In addition, trade facilitation is critical for perishable products and food products that are moving within the intra-regional route, as these products are very sensitive to time delays in the customs process or the export process. Now, maybe to add some numbers or to give you some numbers to this, just to emphasize or to buttress the point related to why trade facilitation becomes very relevant for us. Now, according to a report by the World Bank, of the $450 billion in income gains from the AfCFTA, $292 billion will come from stronger trade facilitation, measures to reduce red tape and simplify customs procedures. So in essence, while tariff liberalization is good and it's definitely very important, it's one of the main and strong gains from the Continental Trade Agreement, by itself, it would not offer the full gains of the African Continental Trade Agreement. This is why it's quite important that SMEs, civil societies need to continuously advocate at the national level for the implementation of such complementary frameworks like the TFA. Now, just to maybe summarize my thoughts, I will leave you with these thoughts. And again, repeating my favorite quote, which is the anticipation is the ultimate advantage. My advice to SMEs listening in today would be start to anticipate the future of your business, in the broader perspective of the African market. Start to think about how your supply chain strategy is impacting your business and how can you adapt your supply chain strategy for the future of your business as an SME. And lastly, there are quite a few opportunities that have been presented by the African Free Trade Agreement. You need to try to position yourself, gain the relevant knowledge. I think this is a good time for testing those strategies. This is a good time for learning. This is a good time for building capabilities and capacities in terms of utilization of tools, understanding general customs and border procedures, understanding legal frameworks that could potentially help you have a smoother operations under the African Free Trade Continental Agreement framework. And then I think you will be ready definitely to harness all the opportunities afforded to you by the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So once again, thank you for having me. I'm done speaking, and I will take a pause here if there are any questions.
All right, fantastic. Thank you for that, Gemini, our supply chain expert. Like, we have had like quite a number of questions which have been asked. I don't know if they exactly directed to you, but like even any of the other panelists may be able to jump in. So the person who's asking is Kulu. He's asking, are there any products that might be excluded from the agreement, specifically metals and stones? So I don't know if Gemini, you'd be able to tackle that one.
Okay. No, yeah, thanks. I know that there are several there are several classifications of products under the free trade agreement. There are the sensitive, there are the non-sensitive, and there are the excluded. Now, I believe that it's going to be a country by country specific implementation and definition of that list. It will not be a similar list from South Africa to Nigeria to Ghana. Yes. Each country would have their own liberty to define what is essential, what considers a sensitive list, what constitutes a non-sensitive list, what constitutes a non-included, not included list. And actually the African Free Trade Agreement stipulates a framework for phasing out the tariffs for both the sensitive and the non-sensitive. For the sensitive list, I believe the tariffs will be phased out over the period of 10 years. And for the non-sensitive, it will be phased out over a period of 5 years. So, in just maybe in terms of shedding some light in that area, these are the categorizations that are currently stipulated today in the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
All right, no, thank you for that, Gemini. And I just wanted to ask, one of our people on the platform are asking, it's Sister Jenny. Sister Jenny is asking, is there trade protection with this agreement?
Okay, so I think on that, there was some discussions, or there's some negotiations that occurred regarding the competition aspect of the African Free Trade Agreement. So maybe to gain more insights on that, the resources are readily available on the AE website. I know there are country-to-country discussions regarding the competition, the protection, buyer and seller protection, which was one of the sticking points for the likes of Nigeria during the earlier negotiation process. And I think, again, this might be something that is subject to national implementation interpretation. Because the African Free Trade Agreement, though it stipulates a very broad level political framework, it still lies now on the countries to more or less define more specific, more country-specific contexts that are suitable to the realities of the country itself. So this could be further addressed, at the national level if the countries are making an effort to develop national strategies.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Gemini, for that. And thank you to all our speakers for giving a lot of insights today, Gemini, Katleho, Benedict. So we've reached like the tail end of the evening, and right now it's what I talked about earlier on around just networking. So the spirit of this event or this platform today is specifically looking at Heritage Month here in South Africa and taking on a Pan-African entrepreneur agenda. So I'd like just to give 10 minutes. I'm really mindful of time. We're looking to close off the session around 7:30. So time is not on our sides, but we did say earlier on the elevator pitch is really just a 30 seconds of who you are, where you're from. And if you're from South Africa, I'm sure you remember Ichiga Machiga, as I said earlier on. So what are you known for? What is your value proposition? Please tell us. And at the end of the session, we will be sharing like a smart sheets link, in which the link you'll be able to give your details, and we'll be able to make sure that as a network of African entrepreneurs, we may be able to trade together in the spirit of the conversation we have. So I will ask Lele to field whoever is raising their hands up and give them an opportunity to be able to just give them the elevator speech, and she'll be leading us and stopping people who go over 30 seconds. So yeah, thank you, Lele.
Thank you so much, Azala, and thank you to everyone. It's been a pleasure just listening to all the amazing trade stories and just the potential of the agreement. To pitch, do the elevator pitch for 30 seconds. So if you could just, if you're interested in introducing yourself, could you just put a hands up in the chat box so that the people at the back end can give you access to do so. So this is a great opportunity for you to just introduce yourself to this Pan-African audience, tell us what you do, a bit about your business. You know, I always say that business owners should be their number one cheerleaders. So please don't be, this is a safe space for everyone to come on here and just let us know who you are, where you're from, and what your business does. So I'll just give a little bit of time for people to, yes, so please, so put up your hand if you'd like to introduce yourself to fellow entrepreneurs. Don't be shy, so that Carrie and Storms at the back end could allow that to happen.
So from my side, from my side, I can see Lele. I can see Bomigazi. Bradley, is it possible to give Bomigazi access to speak? Chinahamu.
Okay. Somebody asked if the video will be on or off. I think the video should be on, so we can see you and hear you as well.
Bomigazi, are you able to unmute yourself?
AZ, I'm just upgrading her at the moment.
All right. Sorry about that. We do have Bradley in the background who will just be upgrading the next few speakers. It's going to be Bomigazi, and then after Bomigazi, it's going to be Wanatasha. My apologies for maybe pronouncing people's names incorrectly. As African people, our names are very important to us, and they speak of our, heritage and where we come from. So my sincere apologies. Then we're going to have Gerald, and then afterwards we're going to have Usne Tamba. But in the meantime, please remember to follow us on all our networks, E to the point, Bradley, is Bomigazi able to speak to us?
Azola, just ask them to accept the request to be promoted to a panelist so that I can share their videos as well.
All right, Bomigazi, I think you have been able to hear from our technical assistants in the background, Bradley. Please accept the request to go as a panelist so that we can see your face and hear what your story is.
So he just said he hasn't received a request.
Okay. Just give me a second. I'm going to try to do that now. We'll start with Wanacha first. Hi, Wanacha, you can go ahead.
Evening. My name is Wanata Mokwati, and I am from Botswana. I'm here because I saw this on Market Player's Twitter page. So, am I audible, firstly? Let me just check.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. We can hear you.
Yes, we
Alright.
can hear you, Wanacha. You only have 30
Alright.
seconds to tell us where you're from,
Okay.
what you do. It is an elevator pitch aimed at, engaging with other entrepreneurs. So you only have 30 seconds and Lele will cut you off afterwards. Thanks, Wanacha.
All right, so my name is Wanata Mokhate and I'm from Botswana, and basically what I do is I make koto donuts. So in Botswana, our population does not yet allow us to have a donut franchise. So I thought I can do this. I can be the next Krispy Kremes. So why don't I? And I decided to start my business in 2020, during my final year of varsity, and it's been going really well. But what I'm hoping to do now is to scale and hopefully own the very first donut franchise in Botswana, owned by me.
Thank you so much for that. Could you just give us the name of your...
My donut company is called W. Donuts.
Hi, sorry, ladies and gentlemen. It does seem that there are some network glitches, particularly from my colleague, Lele. So in the meantime, as she's sorting out her network issues, is it possible, Bradley, for us to go to Bomigazi or Sinetembe?
I think Gerald was next, Azola. He's ready to go.
All right, Gerald, please take it away. Please remember only 30 seconds, Gerald. Your value proposition, what you do, your company name. We're keeping it short and sweet. We're nearly at 7:30. Gerald, please go for it.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Yes, my name is Gerald. Yes, my name is Gerald Zengemoyo. I'm from Zimbabwe, currently based in Botswana, Gaborone. Yes, my business is called Africa Renewers. It's a Pan-African specialty corporate finance or business advisory services focusing on women and youth-owned businesses with a view to promote sound and sustainable business and entrepreneurial development across Africa. Currently, my journey started in Zimbabwe and is extended to as far as Botswana, South Africa, and Zambia. I wish to fully take advantage of these Africa free trade agreements and hopefully expand my network and all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gerald, for that. Bradley, please tell us who is next. And please remember, I will be sending out a link on the chat where it's going to be smart sheets and just telling you who you are, like where you're from, so that we can be able to, send out a mail directory and that people can interact as part of this networking session. So ready on the chat?
I have Mzimkulu and then Sinetemba is the last two with their raised hands. Who do you want me to put through?
It's up to you.
Okay, I'm putting Mzimkulu through.
Mzimkulu? Okay, it seems as though Mzimkulu is not on. Bradley, maybe let's go.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mzimkulu.
Good evening, guys. Mzimkulu Ngapi is my name. Company is Fossil Diamonds International, based in South Africa. We are a facilities management company. We provide business services, soft services, and technical services. The other division is an international trade division. We're licensed importers and exporters. We specialize in precious metals and fast-moving consumer goods. Thank you.
Cool, fantastic. Thank you so much, Mzimkhulu. I think you got the brief to the point. That was definitely 30 seconds, proper elevator speech. And then next up and last, we've got Snetemba before I wrap up the session. Snetemba?
Hi, thanks, Azola. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, I guess you guys have saved the best for last. So my name is Snetemba Sakuba. So as you kicked off, names are very important. So my name stands for hope. We have hope. So it's very encouraging coming through this webinar, but maybe to give you a brief background, I'm Snetemba Sakuba from East London. The name of my company is Electrical Electronics Quality Solutions. So we are an enterprise supply development partner of Mercedes-Benz South Africa in East London. So we are a Daimler AG partner. We basically offer services in the automotive field. So mainly our core function and service that we offer is mainly in the non-core functions of the OEMs. So we've just secured a contract with the OEM for the next 7 years, supplying parts that we'll be importing from a tier 1 supplier. So basically with this webinar we just had now, we see a lot of opportunities of bringing that international tier 1 supplier down to Africa, because we see a lot of potential there, as our main part that we'll be supplying for the OEM is the 12-volt battery. So we see a lot of potential there, especially with the EV cars coming through. Our strategic position and our partnership with Mercedes-Benz South Africa and Daimler AG as a global partner will put us in a key strategic position to really bring in key partnerships into Africa. And yeah, thank you very much for the informative session. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Snetemba, and being the last person. And as your name says, hope, you've also given me hope, you know, in terms of the platform that we've created and what we're doing and the ability to scale up, you know, as African entrepreneurs. I'd like to once again thank all our speakers, Benedict, Katleho, Gemini, as well as my co-host, Lele Balde from Business Day Weekender. Thank you for such a great session. It's entrepreneurship to the point. And I've been your host, Azola Mzegandaba. It's been a vibe. And yeah, like on this platform, we use words like that, even though we are a platform that informs, equips, and inspires. Please remember to register for any other webinar. The next one is not on the screen at the moment, but it's actually, oh, there it goes. It's on the 7th of October. It's a woman-focused guide to finance. So this is focusing primarily on women and even linking it to the Africa Free Continental Trade. It has like the document does have quite a strong focus on women-led businesses. And we know as Africans that majority of our entrepreneurs are women, even though they are in the informal economy. And part of this is like, how then do we integrate them into the formal economy? And I think it really starts with an ability to manage your finances. So we have on the 7th of October, a woman-owned business access to finance. And then after that, on the 28th of October, we have what we call LED, our local economic development conversation. And this is really, what is it? What does it mean for small growing businesses? As a business, we are in the property and property related space. I'm sure you saw a lot of looting in the South African malls or retail centers. And this is a topical conversation on how can we create shared value with the communities in which property developers or businesses in general serve. Yeah, so those are our next sessions. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining our session today. My name is Azola Mzegandaba. Those that know me, they call me the Joy of Jazz. Thank you for this session today. Cheers and goodbye.